Welcome back for Keeper of the Lost City's Nightfall, chapters 74 and 75. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a chapter, and this is chapter 74. Looks like someone didn't sleep, Keith said, following Sandor into Sophie's room the next morning. Are you really surprised? She asked, pulling her hair closer to her face to hide her puffy, shadowed eyes. Of course not. But was it nightmares? Or were you lying there overthinking everything? Or were you up late talking to your sister? All of the above, Sophie admitted, sitting on the edge of her bed. He plopped down next to her. How much did you decide to tell Amy? I told her we found the other Nightfall, and that we're going in tonight. Mostly I tried to assure her that we have everything under control, but I don't think she believed me. I'm sure this... He traced a finger over the crease between her eyebrows. Doesn't make you very convincing. Their eyes locked, and it was suddenly much harder than it should have been to come up with a response. Iggy saved her from having to by jumping around, demanding attention. How come you're here already? She asked, as she headed to her desk to scratch the tiny green imp through the bars of his cage. They weren't supposed to meet until closer to midnight, once they were all dressed and ready to head to Nightfall. They'd be wearing never-seen cloaks this time, hoping it might help them blend in. But the gnomes were still scrambling to make enough cloaks, especially ones large enough for Sandor, Roe, and Grizzle. Keith moved to her side. I figured if someone didn't come over to distract you, you'd have no eyelashes left by tonight. She dropped her hand, not realizing she'd been tugging. Besides, he said, reaching into the pocket of his burgundy tunic, I realized there's one thing we forgot to do. And I figured you'd strangle me if I did it without you. So... He pulled out his old imparter. Sandor glowered. Hey, don't blame me, Gigantor. You never asked for it back. I bet you didn't even notice it was missing until right now. Of course I did. Nice try, Rose said, peeking into the room. We all know you would have been pounding on the doors of the shores of Solace if you'd realized. The shores of Solace? Sophie asked. Apparently, that's what my dad calls his beach house, Keith told her. And yes, he says it was a straight face. Meanwhile, I keep calling it the waves of wimpiness, Rose said proudly. Lord Pretentious is not a fan. Sophie had to smile at both nicknames, but it faded when she asked Keith, How's it going, living there? He shrugged. It smells better than Alvar's house. But is your father being nicer? Oh, yeah, it's a big cuddle fest. And then we sit down and make a list of all the reasons we love each other. She crossed her arms. I mean it. Are you really okay? It is what it is. And focus, Foster. Wrong, awful parent. Right now, it's all about Mommy Dearest. He pointed to the imparter. I swear I don't have any crazy plans. I just know my mom loves to hold something back to see if someone calls her on it. Plus, I get to stab him again, Rose said, unsheathing her dagger and jabbing the tip of his finger. Keith didn't even flinch. Hopefully this is the last time you'll have to do that, Sophie said, as they both sat on the edge of the bed again, and he smeared his blood across the censer. Pretty sure I'm never going to be free of her, he mumbled. If you were free of me, Lady Giselle sniped through the blank screen, you never would have gotten this close to finding Sophie's parents, and yet I don't hear a thank you. You're not helping us, you're helping yourself, Sophie told her. Why can't I do both? And let's see. I'm guessing this is the part where you accuse me of hiding something to sabotage the mission, and I have to remind you that we're on the same side, and that I need you to recover my archetype. It's a thick black volume, in case you were wondering, secured with a latch made of bands of gold and silver. You'll most likely find it near your parents, but if not, don't leave the facility without it. Yeah, sorry, we're not risking our lives to get your book back, Keith told her. It's more than a book, it's my vision. And it's thousands times more elegant than Fenton and his Criterion. I know you're still refusing to see me as anything more than a villain in this conflict, but like it or not, I'm the only one trying to build a solution. To what? Sophie asked. Problems you're still not ready to face. So, let me give you some advice before you head to that facility. Remember who your enemy is. Really remember, because it'll be easy to lose sight of everything once you're in there. Think about who brought down Luminaria, who burned Eternalia, and who unleashed the Gnomish Plague, and stole the lives of the people you love. Translation, Keith said you want us to take out Fenton instead of Vespera. You also agreed to wipe out the facility, Lady Giselle reminded Sophie. Technically, I didn't, Sophie argued. You told me I'd want to once I saw it, and I didn't correct you, but I didn't agree either. So, you would allow it to remain, even knowing what goes on under there, Lady Giselle countered. Unease bloomed in Sophie's gut, but she kept her voice steady as she said, I won't destroy it unless I know I can get everyone out of there safely, and that I won't somehow damage the city. Ah, the Black Swan's philosophy. Overthink, overplan, stall, stall, stall. Haven't you seen how quickly that fails you? I'm only going to say this once. You'll regret it if you don't destroy that facility, Sophie, just as you'll regret it if you allow Fenton to remain breathing. So if you get your chance, do whatever it takes to wipe them out of existence, regardless of the cost. Why not Vespera? Sophie asked. Because I'm inclined to believe that there's more subtlety to her, and her research, than her journals imply. She's an empath after all, and empaths feel every hurt they trigger. Not all of them, Keith muttered, and Sophie's heart ached, knowing he had to have meant his father. How do you know she's an empath? Sophie asked. I just do. It's actually why I chose Keith's father from my match list. I knew if I wanted to build my own Nightfall someday, I was going to need an empath to help me run it. But he turned out to be incompatible. Fortunately, he gave me the son, who manifested with far more power than he ever had. That's your legacy, Keith, but we'll talk about that more later. For now, go get my archetype and try not to die. The imparter went silent, and Sophie and Keith just stared at it. Eventually, Keith mumbled, So, all of that's getting shoved into a really dark corner in my head, and we're not going to talk about it. Okay? At least not until we get through tonight. Sophie nodded. Well, at least we know Vespera's ability isn't something scary. Don't be so sure. My mom's never trained as an empath, so she doesn't get it. He stood, moving to Sophie's bookshelf, where she'd displayed the paintings he'd given her around her old human scrapbook. My empathy mentor once told me, when she saw how strong my ability was, that there's a risk that comes with feeling too much and not having the right training. Our mind's natural reaction is to shut down when things get too intense, but everything is intense for an empath. So if you're not careful, you can end up going numb. You'll still feel what others feel, but you won't feel anything yourself, and it can mess you up, since emotions overlap when you don't know all the thoughts and memories that trigger them. So, like, the rush that comes with anger. It's not actually all that different from what you feel when someone's super giddy. In its basest essence, at least. They both give a burst of adrenaline. They both make the heart race and cause a surge of shivers. You only notice the bigger differences when you take time to figure out why you're feeling it. Not sure I get what that means, Sophie admitted. I don't totally either, but my mentor said if I don't watch myself, I could get to the point where I'd feel the same thing if I hugged somebody or punched them in the face. And if Vespera let that happen to her, well, it would explain how she was able to do such horrible, creepy research and write about it like it was no big deal. Goosebumps erupted across Sophie's arms, and she rubbed them to calm the chill. Keith did the same, which made her realize, Is it harder to be around me? She asked, since my emotions are stronger? His lips tugged into a smile. Don't worry. You're worth it. Why didn't you tell me? She stood, moving toward the door, trying to put as much space between them as she could. He laughed. Trust me, a few feet doesn't make much of a difference. Then you should be staying away from me, she told him. Now you're being ridiculous. He strode over to her, and she tried to back away, but crashed into the wall. I'm serious, Keith. Oh, I know, but you're forgetting something, Foster. He was close enough to reach out and gently tug her hair behind her ear as he leaned in to whisper, I like a challenge. His breath tickled her skin, and her stomach filled with fluttery things. Speechless again? He asked, grinning as he leaned in to whisper, You know, There's a loud slam had them both scrambling back, and before they could blink, Sandor and Ro were jumping in front of them, both drawing their weapons as heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. "Good, you're both together," Mr. Forkle gasped between heaving breaths as he stumbled into the room with Grady and Adeline right behind him. "That saves me one trip." "What's going on?" Sophie asked. "Change of plans. You need to go. All of you." "Where?" Grady demanded as Mr. Forkle dug through the pockets of his cape. "We've had Wraith keeping watch over the Unity Fountain. This morning he found a new bottle floating near the base of the statues, with the Undul crest for a seal. Wiley rushed to Atlantis to retrieve it, and apparently the Neverseen have named their own terms for the meeting. New time, new place, no negotiation. But it's fine, we just have to hurry. Squall's already at the new location. She seems to think it's safe. It's public at least, but Wiley should be joining her any minute. So, you should get there as soon as you can." He handed Adeline a pathfinder. "I already have the crystal set to the facet you need." "Wait, now?" Adeline asked. "Unfortunately, Blur went to warn the Vackers when I came here, so Della should be on her way, if she's not already there, and Tiergan will be there as soon as he gets Tam and Lynn what they need. So you five have to hurry," he told Sophie, Keith, Grady, Sandor, and Ro. "I'll go get Miss Reddick and have her meet you there." He handed Grady a pale glowing bottle, light from Candacia, and a small piece of Baxidium. "That will get you into the heart of the city," he explained. "The Unity Fountain is 2 blocks over. Stay in the southern alley until everyone's gathered." Sophie blinked. "We're going to Atlantis now?" "Not just Atlantis," he told her. "You're going into Nightfall." Chapter 75. "I wish I could have changed," Sophie mumbled, fussing with the sleeves of her long white tunic. She'd been planning to wear the green Neverseen-style vest she'd used for the mission to Ravagog a few months earlier, but there hadn't been time enough to change. So now she was stuck in ruffles and frills, trying to be grateful that her low boots at least had soft soles and didn't make a clack, clack, clack as she paced the narrow alley. "Tell me about it," Fitz said, fanning the front of his red bramble jersey. "I was halfway through my morning run when Blur showed up, so now I'm all sweaty. And smelling awesome," Keith added with a choked cough. Fitz, Bianna, and Grizzle had already been waiting for them when Sophie's group had arrived in the city. Morella showed up a couple minutes later, followed by Dex and his father. "I'm a slight amendment to the plan," Kessler explained, "to clear the crowd out of the courtyard, since we're having to do this during a busy time." He patted a worn satchel slung around his shoulder, and Sophie could hear the clink of glass vials knocking into each other. "Stink bombs?" Keith guessed. "Some of my finest," Kessler agreed. "Oh, can I set one off?" Ro asked. Kessler laughed, pretty sure that would cause an interspecial incident. "Which is why it'd be so fun," Ro countered. Sophie tried to smile, but she couldn't take her eyes off the courtyard, where tiny shops and cafes surrounded the fountain in the center. The golden figures gleamed among the streams of colorful water that blasted around them in neat arcs before splashing into the swimming pool-sized basin. She was too far away to see where Vespera's signature lay hidden on the top of the human statue's scepter, but she could feel it there, waiting for her, promising answers. "So when do we unleash the stink?" Keith asked. "As soon as I get the signal," Kessler told him. "I guess Alden's setting something up in another part of the city to try to draw everyone's attention over there." "And we have this to keep us hidden in the meantime," Dex said, pulling an obscure from his pocket. "I made some tweaks to it last night, so it should even cover some of what Lynn does to the fountain, at least for a while." "Where is Lynn?" Fitz asked. "And Tam," Bianna added. "Sorry," the twins said a couple of minutes later, plodding into the alley, carrying thick stacks of black fabric. "Tiergan made us wait for these," Tam explained, pointing to the white eye symbol on the sleeves. Sophie's stomach filled with all kinds of squirmy things. The wriggling grew stronger when Lynn passed out their disguises, and Sophie found herself surrounded by black-cloaked figures of her nightmares. And dressed as one, too. "Right there with you, Foster," Keith mumbled. "I'd kind of been hoping I'd never have to put on one of these again, even a fake one." "Does anyone else think it's a bad sign they'd never seen her rushing us?" Marilla asked, her petite frame hidden completely by the dark fabric. "Or are we all just going to pretend we're not freaking out?" "I'm not freaking out," Grady promised, pulling his hood over his head. Let them think they're calling the shots. Nothing's going to stop us from getting Sophie's parents back today. Agreed, Fitz said, resting a hand on Sophie's shoulder. Okay, but what's our actual plan? Tam asked. Do we know where we're going once Lynn and Dex get the door open? Grizzle and I will go in first to scout for the guards, Sandor said, strapping his sword on the outside of his cloak. We'll use our senses to find a path where Sophie's parents are being kept. And I'll make sure they don't get it messed up, Ro added. But just so we're clear, if I see any of my father's traitors, I'll be killing them on sight. If you want to leave the never-seen breathing, that's your call, but any ogres are going to die. I have no problem with that, Sandor told her. I'll happily let you strike them down. I doubt I'll need your help, Rose said, but I guess it's good to have backup. Sandor nodded, and Sophie wondered if this could be the first time an ogre and goblins had fought together. The rest of us will follow, Grady told everyone. Try not to be noticed and stay behind me. If I tell you to do something, do it. Now who's taking over everything? Keith muttered. And I bet he won't get cut off for a week. You're not helping yourself in the father approval department right now? Ro whispered. Keith shrugged. Okay, Sophie said before an argument started. We're going to do this like we always do, listening to each other and counting on the fact that our plans are going to change about 1,000,000 times as soon as we get in there. No one goes off alone. No one single-handedly tries to be the hero. If we see the archetype, grab it. Otherwise, the goal is finding my parents and getting out as fast as we can. Am I turning anyone else invisible? Bianna asked. Sophie shook her head. If we can't hide the whole group, it doesn't matter. Especially since I should probably save my mental energy in case I have to enhance Grady. Everyone shuddered at that. I'll cover us with as many shadows as I can, Tam said. And I'll have flames ready, Marilla added. Sophie rubbed the knotted emotions in her chest. I'll inflict if I have to, but it'll be less painful for you guys if I don't. And if anyone needs me to enhance them, let me know. Same goes for needing a mental boost, Fitz told her. And calming any panic, Keith added. A distant chime rang through the city, and strange music followed, a series of soft, lovely sounds woven into something peaceful and melodic. That's one of my mom's compositions, Lynn whispered, glancing at her brother. She must be here. Tam whipped around as if he'd be able to see his mom performing, but the rows of silver-blue towers blocked everything. I think that's also my cue, Kessler said, pulling Dex into a stranglehug before he headed out into the alley. And I'd plug my nose and cover my mouth if I were you guys. He waited until he entered the courtyard before he suddenly poured one of his vials on the ground. Dude, what's in that? Keith asked, looking both queasy and impressed as he tried to fan the stench away. It smells like 100 Gulan farts baking in the sun. The crowd had noticed the odor as well, and there was a whole lot of coughing and gagging and sputtering, which turned into full-fledged stampeding as Kessler poured out a couple more vials. We should move, Grady said, as they pushed into the fleeing mass, dodging elbows and trampling feet as they fought their way to the fountain. Should I part the water yet? Lynn asked, as Dex tossed the obscurer into the center of the basin. Give it another minute, Fitz said. There's still a lot of people here. Sophie used the time to study the gleaming golden figures. The elven statue looked especially regal in an elegant cape and circlet, with part of his hair braided back and the rest hanging gracefully past his shoulders. His hand held a scroll, which he seemed to be offering to the human statue, whose head was bowed with gratitude. The human had rougher features and seemed to be wearing some sort of armor, but instead of a sword he clutched a long-etched scepter. And carved into the orb at the end was the symbol that turned the whole image into a mockery. I think we're clear, Grady said, as the final few stragglers dissipated. And if there is anyone in Nightfall, I'm sure they know we're here. So we should head in before we give them a chance to prepare. Sophie nodded, and Lynn climbed into the rim of the fountain's basin, her brow furrowed while she raised her hands and flicked her wrists. The ebb and flow of the fountain halted, and the colorful streams of water stilled. And when the surface of the pool was smooth as glass, Lynn swept her arms in opposite directions. The water followed her silent command, rippling down the middle and rising on either side. So much more water than Sophie had expected. The fountain sloped sharply towards the center, the pool so deep that they would have been in way over their heads. But Lynn kept drawing the water higher and higher until she had formed 2 gurgling walls with a space in the center. A narrow, puddled path that cut straight to the human figure's pedestal. Even with the distance, Sophie could see the outline of a door, marked once again with Vesper's signature. "You okay?" Tam asked as sweat trickled down Lynn's temples. She nodded. "The other water just keeps calling to me now that I've opened my senses." She tilted her head to the dome covering Atlantis, and a smile stretched across her rosy cheeks. "We'd better hurry," Tam warned. "The last time she got that look, she flooded the city." "I can resist it," Lynn promised. But Dex was already hurtling over the edge of the fountain and sprinting to the door. "This lock isn't too bad," he said, placing his hands on the metal and tracing his fingers in circles. "Just give me a second." Tam climbed up next to Lynn and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I'm fine," she assured him, but she didn't take the dreamy eyes off the dark depths beyond the dome. "Almost there," Dex called. "I'm just trying to feel for any alarms." An antagonizing minute passed. Then the door slid silently open. No sirens blaring, no guards rushing to attack. Only a blast of cold, misty air swirled out of the shadowed space beyond. Sandor and Grizzle raised their swords and charged down the slippery path in the fountain, disappearing without a word. "Give us 2 minutes," Roe told Keith. "Then follow unless you hear a whole lot of screaming." Sophie choked down her nerves as she darted toward the door. She couldn't see much of the facility. Just a hall of ancient silver and gold stones that wound down, 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 and vanished into the dark mist below. "How did she keep this place from crumbling when they sank the city?" Bianna whispered. "Most likely it was already buried," Grady murmured. "I wouldn't be surprised if this hall was actually much longer originally, and sinking the city brought Nightfall closer." He traced his fingers over the doorframe, over the ancient runes that proved how long this lie had existed. "I need to get Lynn away from this water," Tam called, pulling his sister into the fountain. Lynn let the path close behind them, leaving their group in a bubble of air nestled against the entrance. They lingered there, in the last safe space, locking hands and giving themselves a second to prepare. Then together, they stepped into that darkness, that impossible path, to find Sophie's parents and chase down truths their world might not be ready for. I'll see you tomorrow for chapters 76 and 77. Bye!